Hello. First question. Does anybody here know a farm? Raise your hand. Yeah. All right. Does anybody ever fish or eat fish or anything like that? Well, then this is gonna like dramatically affect you. I don't know if any of you know this, but last summer, the Missouri River flooded really bad. It was a big old crisis, disaster area thing. Well, this spring, me and my dad went out. We were looking for stairs, flood debris, to put in our cellar. And I made a list of stuff that we found in the river, different bottles of chemicals. You'd be surprised at what ends up in these fields. The main thing is there was different chemical ones, and I decided to look into what these chemicals actually do to the river. The 3 different types of chemicals. You can get all complicated by looking at different brands and everything. It all breaks down into 3 different kinds. There's pesticides that kill off insects and pests that you don't want in your crops. There's herbicides that kill off like unwanted plants that compete for nutrients and water. And there's fertilizers, and they directly put nutrients into the plants to make them bigger, make them grow faster. Which one of these do you think would be worse for the rivers? Anybody? Pesticides? Alright. Well, oops. First thing is pesticides. And we dump, in just America alone, we dump 75 million pounds of pesticides on our fields to keep off plants, keep off grasshoppers, keep off aphids, keep off anything in the field. Like 50% of this is taken away by rainwater, groundwater, right into the streams. Every trace of water that gets in the ground will end up in a river, end up in the Missouri or the Mississippi, end up in the Gulf of Mexico. Any fish that eats insects in the river are going to die because that's what that's designed for, to kill insects. Fish that eat those insects either move to other areas that haven't been affected, overcrowding them, or they eat them. Sometimes they die. As you can tell, my PowerPoint's kind of wonky, but that's just kind of for me to look at anyway. There's a thing called biological magnification, which is when a predator eats an animal that has been affected by a pesticide that has been directly put into its system. That animal itself isn't affected by this. What happens is that it builds up in its system. The more of these prey that they eat, the more it builds up. The fly in my face, I apologize. Anyways, it builds up in their system and it's carried on to their offspring. So like, I don't know if any of you heard of the bald eagles a few years ago, how they had really thin shells, they were endangered for a long time. That was because of application of a pesticide called DDT. And then the bald eagles ate prey that were affected by DDT. They built up in their systems and their eggshells were really thin. That's called biological magnification. There are some studies that say that can happen to humans too, more we eat, but that hasn't technically been proven. Herbicides are used to kill unwanted plants, like compete for nutrients, like velvet leaves, like crawlers. Farmers apply them a lot because weeds can grow up within short periods of time. Rain washes the herbicides in the streams and rivers. Herbicide is water-based. It dilutes in the water. If you put herbicide in a glass of water, it's not going to sit on top. It's going to go in the water. It's going to dissolve into it. Now, that's good for a small amount of herbicide, but the more you put in there, it spreads out to get the percent of herbicide in the water higher than original. Miles of weeds just all the way down the river will die off because that's what herbicides do. They kill off unwanted plants. A lot of aquatic life uses these weed banks to rear young, to hatch eggs and stuff. Without these weeds, there's no protection for the eggs or the young, and they just get picked off. Then populations of fish and other river wildlife go down again, or they'll move into other areas and overcrowd them again. Fertilizers. You can argue that fertilizers are the worst to put in the rivers. You wouldn't think so because they grow those plants, but fertilizers are debatably the worst. Fertilizers are used by farmers just to make the plants grow faster and stronger and taller. And when they hit soil, it washes away about 50% of this fertilizer. Because, chemically speaking, fertilizer is oil-based. If you put fertilizer in water, a lot of it will stay near the top of the water. It's oil-based. That's really bad because there's this type of algae that grows in the river. Normally it's just in a few spots, stagnant spots. With that fertilizer, this algae explodes. It takes over miles of area and it just turns it into nothing. Because it's a plant. That means it depletes the water of, well, how plants actually work. They eat carbon dioxide and exclude oxygen, but they themselves also eat oxygen. While this algae is in the water, it depletes this water of all the oxygen there is. These fish have no oxygen, so they have to leave. They have to leave to another area or they die. Also, underneath this algae, there's no sunlight. It banks. It completely takes away the sunlight. That means that no weeds grow under that to root young or anything like that. Water pollution, nothing related to water pollution is localized. Every drop of a chemical that hits the ground will end up in the ocean. In America, this all ends up in the Gulf of Mexico. There's miles and miles of area in the Gulf of Mexico that's called the dead zone. As you can see in this picture, not livable. Livable. It's just all these chemicals built up in there. No fish can live in that, and that really affects fishermen around here. This catfish right here is suffering from a bacterial illness caused by eating insects or plants infected with herbicides and pesticides. If you catch a fish in a pond that's small, doesn't have a lot of like water, like river or most moving water, you check it. It'll have parasites, pests, and bacteria in it. That's not good to eat. That can make you sick, and that's exactly what this catfish is. Amphibians breathe directly through their skin, and that means that they get the effects of pollution way more than anything else does. They're like the red light of pollution. Frogs, especially. This one has multiple legs, as you can see right here. A lot of activists will make a big stink about frogs having multiple legs, but that's just the opening signs of pollution in the river. Jellyfish are a big deal. People will argue that global warming is happening and everything. Well, jellyfish are prehistoric. They are there at the very beginning of the water from the very beginning. They thrive in that condition. It's bad for everybody. Fishermen have been pulling in way more jellyfish than they ever had before, and less of the fish they actually want. The jellyfish are predators. They eat those fish. And also, jellyfish have a natural ability that they can thrive in heavily polluted water. So, like that dead zone, you could probably find jellyfish in that area because they can survive in that pollution. The gar. The gar is my favorite fish. Because the gar, it's been around for millions, well, probably billions of years. They're around before the dinosaurs. That's because of their adaptations. Gar are so adapted to live that they take over rivers and stuff. You hear a lot about people trying to put a gar in their water. Gar have their swim bladder acts as a pump for air. So even in like stagnant water, like the floodwaters out there, and a little pool, you can find gar because they'll float to the top and breathe the air outside of the water. They can live in heavily polluted water. They'll eat just about anything. They'll eat a lot of different things. And their eggs are coated with poison. If something eats the egg, they die. So all their offspring will survive into adulthood to carry on this tradition of taking over rivers. Why do we care at all about any of this? Because 2 billion people realize fish as their only protein. By putting pesticides, herbicides, fertilizers on our crops, we're taking away food from others. And after all, human-made differences are taken away, we are all people. What we can do, we can't expect the American farmer to stop putting these chemicals in the field. We have 7 billion people in the world now. We need to feed these people. There's no way we can go back to pre-chemical farming that we wouldn't. have near enough to feed these people. We can't expect them to stop doing this. What we can expect them to do is to put different strategies in place. Some farmers practice growing ryegrass in the off season, and that's because ryegrass captures nitrogen in the soil really well. Like so that the next year they don't get a harvest on it. What they do is that they'll mow it on down and then they'll plant over with a no-till thing. That's because that nitrogen will then go back in the soil. It pretty much just holds it from going in the water while there's no crops being placed there. They do different rotations, like corn. Corn sucks all nutrients from your soil. If you did corn after corn after corn after corn, eventually your soil will be depleted with nutrients. So that's why farmers will switch from soybean and in the south different crops like tobacco or cotton. The reason that we do all this, the reason that we should, is because what we do here affects everybody. Are there any questions? Yeah. I believe the question was, does the dead zone get bigger? Does it stay where it's at? But the more pollution that we put into this water, the more it's spreading. It's spreading every day that we keep polluting. It just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. Are there any other questions?
Likely to put the fertilizers or petroleum based
Well, there's different types of them. Some fertilizers are natural, that they're just nutrients diluted into water, so that goes right in there. But a lot of them are like a lot of them are oil based, where they sit at the top. Not like oil where it's like rainbow color to the top, but when it dilutes, it'll stay near the top of the water. What?
I'm troubled with your statement that all fertilizers are controlled.
Not all of them are, just the majority. Like farmers will use what costs them less money. A lot of organic things that they could do, they'll cost a lot more money. And it's understandable that they would use those because they're trying to support their own families.
You told me you were from Harrison County.
Harrison County, yep, right along the Missouri River.
So did you have any river damage in Bridgewater?
Not directly mine, but not even a mile from my house. My neighbor was 12 feet away from the water. You could see on his trees the water line going down through there. We evacuated yet, but we didn't get hit yet. Anything else from anybody?
Is there one particular practice that really
Well, there's a lot of people out of like Iowa State. I went there for a while for a climate camp, and that's where I got interested. A lot of people argue that like waste falling in, maybe it's a little marsh in it, maybe it has a tendency to flood. What they're saying that they should do is plant perennial grasses there, like prairie land, and that the soil structure of these perennial grasses will form in the dirt will hold their nutrients a lot better throughout the years. Like, if it's a waste field and they're not making very much profit out of it anyway, some people argue they should plant perennial grasses there, let it grow for 5-10 years, and then mow it over. You could sell it for biofuel, biomass to make ethanol, but the majority of the reason is for the soil structure that creates. Is there anything else? If not, then this concludes my presentation. Thank you for listening to me.